Hello, welcome back. This is your last video in this little mini course, What to Expect After Breast Cancer Treatment Ends. And in this video, we're talking about the serious subject, right? How to cope with the fear of recurrence. That is, I think, my biggest fear. And I think for every breast cancer survivor that I've spoken to, their biggest fear, the fear of getting it again. And you may feel like you're just kind of sitting, waiting for the other shoe to drop, waiting to find the next lump, waiting to feel sick again, just waiting to hear the words, "You've got breast cancer again." And you may be okay with that, and that's okay. I'm always a judgment-free zone. I understand that we all make different choices. My choice, however, is a little different because what I have noticed through going through all of the major traumas that I've been through in my life, and that includes a divorce, major car accident, the loss of my mom and my dad and my younger brother in the space of 5 years, my husband almost losing his right arm in a motorcycle accident, and of course breast cancer, and discovering that not only do I have the BRCA2 gene mutation, but so do both of my adult children. And I think as we go through traumas, we're faced with this decision. Or can we frame it as an opportunity, which is how I like to look at it, right? We can either say, I'm going to sit here and just bang my head against this brick wall. Or we can look and say, is this just a fork in the road? Is this going to lead me down a different path to something better in my life, to something happier and healthier and more vibrant? You can guess which path I choose. I choose that fork in the road every single time after every trauma, looking at what can I control? How can I be happy and healthy and vibrant and strong and start to thrive rather than just survive? Because you know what? We've mastered survival mode. You're here, you're watching this video. So now you get to choose, do you want to thrive? And if we want to thrive, then it's so important that we learn these coping mechanisms so that we're not sitting with that fear, that big black cloud hanging over our head. I'm not saying that this is perfection. No, perfection does not exist. I'm not saying it's easy. I wish there was like a magic button. Unfortunately, there isn't. But when it comes to the fear of recurrence, we get to make some choices, right? If you know that in your daily life, you are making choices every single day to reduce your risk of recurrence, you can imagine how that might feel empowering. That might build your confidence. That might help you in your life as you move forward. And it does, because that's what I do. That's what I do every single day. And that's what I teach you to do. So let's talk about some of these ways. And look out for an email for me for an upcoming webinar. The webinar will be coping with the fear of recurrence without needing to meditate 8 hours a day. Because sometimes we feel like that's what we have to do, right, to cope with the fear. So look out for an email. You'll be getting one shortly about my next upcoming webinar. I do them every so often. So just check your email and look for that, because we will really be deep diving into this on that webinar. But today I want to give you an outline, okay? So number one, I'm going to share with you 3 tips, okay? Number one, we need to recognize our emotions. How many of you have a tendency to just suck it up, get on with it, sweat it out, and move forward? That used to be me. 100%. 100% until my car accident. then I couldn't sweat it out anymore. And you may feel like you don't have the physicality right now that you used to. You don't have the energy. You don't have the endurance. Maybe you're still experiencing some tightness through your chest. Maybe you're dealing with some lymphedema. Maybe you're just really exhausted. And the idea of adding more movement or something stressful is just not on the agenda. That's okay. That's okay. Because here's the deal. Sweating it out and numbing yourselves and sucking it up is keeping all of that turmoil inside, right? It's not honoring how you feel. It's not validating how you feel. And it's not helping you be real and honest and authentic with yourself. And we all know that when we keep our feelings inside, what eventually happens? It's like a volcano. We're going to explode. We're not going to be as patient with people. We're not going to be as tolerant. We're going to become bitchy, maybe. These are the realities of what happens when we're not being real and honest with ourselves and not honoring how we feel. So it's okay. And sometimes we don't want to verbalize this to our people around us. And I get that, right? We don't want to burden them and we don't want to feel like we're a broken record. So that's when you grab a journal. You grab a journal and you write honestly in that journal without judgment of yourself. Without judgment of yourself. No beating yourself up for honestly seeing how you feel, right? Maybe you're sad. Maybe you're grieving. Maybe it's the grief over the loss of a body part. Maybe it's the grief of a life that was, that you don't know that you're going to feel again. Maybe it's grief over the loss of the identity of who you thought you were. And now that's all been thrown up in the air. Very common. Very, very common. You are not alone. You are not alone. So I want you to recognize your emotions and really feel them. Don't ignore your fears, right? As we move on to number 2 here, don't ignore your fears. Your fears are real. They are valid. You have fought so hard to be here. And the fear of having to go through treatment again, the fear of not being there for your family, the fear of still possibly dying, the fear of just cancer coming back, and more. So many fears, so many fears. It's crucially important that we recognize them and that we honor them. Because as soon as we honor them and realize that, okay, this is how I'm actually feeling, the burden becomes less. And we can start to deal with them and become more aware as soon as they come up. And like I said, I'm going to be diving into this more on the upcoming webinar, right? Coping with the fear of recurrence without needing to meditate 8 hours a day. I called it that. Just have to share for a second. I called it that because like so many people say, just meditate, just meditate. And I'm a fan of meditation. You can see my Buddha behind me. Like I meditate, but meditation doesn't necessarily work for all of us. Some of us maybe haven't tried it yet. Some of us need a different method. That's why I called it that. So I don't want you to think that I don't like, use, and appreciate meditation. I do, but not 8 hours a day. So number 2 is we're making sure that we're not ignoring our fears, right? We're leaning into it, in fact, and we're being honest with ourselves that that's what we are feeling and knowing that it's okay. And knowing that it's okay. All right. Number 3, the third way that I'm going to share with you today about coping with the fear of recurrence is making sure that our coping mechanisms are leading us towards reducing our risk of recurrence versus increasing our risk of recurrence. What do I mean by that? It is very common in life, right, for us to have unhealthier coping mechanisms. And by that, I mean reaching for the chocolate or the ice cream. In my case, don't tell anybody, sour cream and onion potato chips. That's my vice. Don't bring them in the house because you'll find me with them up to my elbow in the bag. Yes, I always speak the truth. So food, right? We stress eat. This is, again, something so common and so normal. We might be drinking more, right? Using it to numb our emotions so that we don't feel. Reaching for a glass of wine or a beer or a cocktail. Maybe smoking. Maybe drugs. People cope in many, many, many different ways. And so what I want you to ask yourself is, are your coping mechanisms leading you towards increasing your risk of recurrence? Because all of those things that I've just talked about all increase your risk of recurrence. Now, what can we do instead? Right? So this is what I do, and this is what I teach. My coping mechanisms now revolve around self-care. And don't roll your eyes at me. Here's the deal, right? And this is the Brit in me coming out. So I'm originally from the UK. So I like to think of ourselves as a teapot and everybody that we help in our lives, because I know that you're a giver and I know that you care for others. And I know that you want to get back to caring and that maybe you're feeling bad that you can't or haven't been able to care for everybody the way that you normally would. How do I know this about you? Because these personality traits and these characteristics are common amongst breast cancer patients. Proven science, not a Karenism, proven science. So that we, number one, have to be aware of that, right? So how can we cope instead? Self-care. You're the teapot, cups. Everybody's a cup that you take care of. And you're pouring tea into all of these cups. And what happens if the teapot runs dry? You've got nothing left to pour. And you might be feeling like that right now. But what fills up the teapot is self-care. Right? Nurturing your body, looking after yourself so that we can continue to pour for others. Just like I'm here doing today. I'm pouring tea for you guys. And it's an honor to have tea with you and to be able to pour tea for you. But the only way that I get to do that is by practicing what I preach. I'm practicing self-care. And that for me looks like clean eating. Eating healthy food, not processed. And again, it's about progress, not perfection. Yes, there's times you're still going to catch my hand in that bag of sour cream and onion potato chips. We're not looking for perfection, but I don't beat myself up afterwards and I don't go down a rabbit hole that just keeps spiraling. That's the difference. And I teach you how to do that in all of my programs, all of my courses, everything that I do. So we've got your eating clean, right? Making healthy choices, real food, like that, you know where it comes from. Stuff that isn't typically in maybe a box or a jar. And to do that, shopping the outside of the supermarket often helps. Meat, fish, vegetables. And if you want to learn more about clean eating, I do more of that in Thrivership School. Really dive into that. The second thing is stress. Right? Managing our stress. How many of you experienced massive amounts of stress prior to your diagnosis? I did. A year before my diagnosis, I was at my mum's bedside as she passed away. 2 weeks later, my brother almost died. 2 weeks later, my husband was in a motorcycle accident, almost losing his right arm. That was within a 1 month period. Yeah, and that was a year before my diagnosis. Stress can trigger cortisol, our stress hormone, to go absolutely crazy, which can throw off all of our other hormones. So for me, which I didn't know, BRCA2 gene ended up with hormone receptive, estrogen and progesterone receptive breast cancer. Why? Because the stress and the cortisol threw off my other hormones. My body was just ripe and waiting. So stress is something else that we need to look at, how you're managing your stress. Super, super important. Self-care, right? We talked a little bit about that, filling up our teapot. And we can do that with simple things, right? I'm such a fan of easy peasy things because we're already tired, we're already overwhelmed. So something as simple as a cup of tea, and yes, you'll hear me talk about tea a lot. It is the Brit in me. I can't help it. But even something as simple as a cup of tea or a cup of coffee, right? Making it with the intention of, okay, this is self-care, rather than just going through the motions, right? Just stay with me for a second and just consider this. Consider the difference in how it actually impacts you. So I'm taking something that you would normally do just every day, right? Not really think about it. But what if you were to really think about it? You put the kettle on. You choose a cup that makes you happy. I have a couple of them in my closet, in my cupboards, that are just there. And I go like this because they're the bowl type cups. And I love those because it just feels good in my hands. Make my cup of tea. Now for me, I'm a bit of a tea addict, as you may have guessed. I choose my tea carefully. So I make the choice of my tea depending on what I feel I need that day. But even if it's just a regular black tea, you do the same thing. So you make your tea, and I want you to sit with it, or your coffee. You just sit and you just hold it. And you say, I am giving back to myself with this. I'm practicing self-care right here with this cup of tea. And you just take a moment and you feel the warmth. And after you take that first delicious sip, you feel it going down and you feel it soothing your body. This can be self-care. It can be that simple. And yes, I have a million other different ways that we can practice self-care, but that's how simple it can be. It is just the intention with which we do our daily things. I hope that makes sense. And I hope I've given you a little bit of food for thought there. But just doing these things and making these healthy choices, that's you saying to yourself, mind, body, spirit, I'm heading towards reducing my risk of recurrence. And as you make these choices, you are going to feel calmer. You are going to feel less anxious. You're going to feel less stressed. And you're going to feel more empowered and more in control of what to expect as you keep going on your breast cancer journey. Makes sense, right? Makes sense. So I want you to know that you have control here. You really do. And simply by rethinking some of your daily habits, you get to start to cope with that fear of recurrence. So I want you to start, number one, recognizing your emotions, recognizing how you feel. Journal them, write them down. Put it into your phone, your computer, wherever you want to. Number two, don't ignore your fears. They're real and they matter and they're important, just like you. And number three, starting to make healthy choices, making the decision to move your life away from dis-ease and towards health. These are the choices that you get to make every single day. And you do get to make those choices. Nobody else can make them for you, but you do. So with that being said, okay, as we finish up this, and you can hear my dog popping in to say hi here, Marley, my 100-pound Rottweiler. Yep, you can see her tail just behind me. She likes to make an appearance in my videos from time to time. But I want you to know that you have some control here. You may not know the path yet, and that's okay. That's what I'm here for. All you have to do is make the choice. Which decision, which direction do you want to head? Do you want to stay banging your head against the brick wall? heading towards disease with your daily choices? Or do you choose health and vibrancy and thriving? And if that's the case, then hang out with me for a while, because I'm going to give you some opportunities to do that. Starting with the Healthy Living After Breast Cancer Facebook community. If you're not in there, hop into there now. It's free. Tons of free stuff in there. Free information, recipes, all kinds of good stuff. Okay? So finishing up this series, I hope you found it useful. Feel free to hit reply on any of the emails that I've sent you if you want to chat, if you want advice, if you want to find out how to work with me and the options that you have there. Please feel free to reach out. Okay? I hope this has been helpful. Stay healthy. Stay true to you and what you want out of your life and your health and your well-being. Okay? And I hope to see you really soon. Bye for now.